Hello, dear ones. My name is Aria, and welcome to Deepwater Yaya. If you're new to this channel, I share videos that offer support for diverse bodies in troubled times, and we can cover a lot of ground. So I really hope you find something that speaks to your heart. If you do enjoy this content, please do all the YouTube things, subscribe and like and share and comment below. Please check out the description for the links to my other work, as well as to my two beautiful, wonderful guests who we're going to introduce in a moment. My Patreon membership is also available over there, and it starts at just $1.50 a month, and every little bit helps. So, however you're participating, know that I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. I really know that we're all in this together and finding our way. So, with no further ado, let me introduce my guests. We have Kara Dorris and Jess Skyleson, who are two of my fellow contributors to In Between Spaces, an anthology of disabled writers. So, welcome, Kara and Jess. It's so wonderful for all of us to be together. I feel so happy. There's like this little lovely little giddy enthusiasm bubbling up in my heart. How are we all doing today?
Very good, thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so glad to be included.
Mhm. So, what I'd like to do is do a little bit of introduction where we each get a chance to tell people whatever it is that we want to know about ourselves, but go over some of our identities. Maybe because specifically of the topic today, we can share a little bit about how we identify as a disabled writer. So, my name is Aria Deepwater. I identify as a cis white presenting woman, disabled and chronically ill, queer, and I use she, they pronouns. And I have been debilitated with myalgic encephalomyelitis or chronic fatigue syndrome since I was 11 years old. And I'm now 50. So it's been quite a while. I'm actually heading into my 40th anniversary with this interesting disease that I live with. So that's me. Carol, what about you?
Yeah, Kara Dorris. I identify as a cis white woman. I use pronouns she and her. I was born with a genetic condition called multiple osteochondromas. So basically, I just benign tumors started growing at the joints of my bones, and so it interfered with normal bone growth. So I have like one arm that's shorter, one leg that's longer, and all these weird little benign tumors in places that they shouldn't be. So I have a lot of like joint pain and things like that. So yeah, I've been living with this for, well, I'm turning 42. So I've been living with this for a long time.
Yeah. And what about you, Jess? Thank you, Carol. What about you, Jess?
So, hi everyone, I'm Jess Skyleson. I identify as a queer, non-binary person, also white, and I am on the autism spectrum, and I have an auditory processing disorder, and as well, when I was 39 years old, I'm 43 now, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and so I'm
Mm.
now living with metastatic cancer, currently in remission, which hopefully will stay that way. But I have a lot of different intersecting identities, both as somebody who identifies as disabled, who identifies as queer. And I've held a lot of different hats in my life. I came to writing poetry after a long career in aerospace and mechanical engineering. Um, so I feel very much that I exist at the intersection of a lot of different groups. And that's why the book we're talking about, In Between Spaces, I love the title. It really appeals to me.
That's actually a great place to start, Jess. Thank you for that. Let's talk about a bit about the title and what it means to each of us. Jess, you were already going. Why don't you keep going with that concept? Why do you
Sure.
like the title so much?
I love the title because I think a lot of times in life it's easy for us to identify ourselves and other people just by one particular group or one particular identity. And it's really not accurate. We all exist in between spaces. We hold a lot of different roles in life. And that may be things that we're born with, things that develop over time, like me, developing cancer, but it could also be different things like becoming a parent or taking a certain career, all of these different roles that we play and all of these different outlooks that they give us on life. And so I like the fact that we're bringing together folks, not saying, we're part of a disabled community, but we all exist in between spaces.
Mm, wonderful, Kara.
That is wonderful. Absolutely. And I agree with everything. I think we're always changing. So we're always in between. I don't think we're ever like in one thing or another, right? Our identities are so multiple. And I'm also really interested in this idea of like passing, right? Because there are people with invisible disabilities and people who pass for abled. And so they're in between spaces, neither here nor there. And so, and also forgotten, right? In between spaces implies that we often get overlooked or forgotten. And I think that happens a lot with the ideal of disability and those who identify as disabled.
Yes, thank you for that. And I'm not quite sure what I can add because I agree so wholeheartedly with both of those reflections. I think for me, the in-betweenness, as I said, is there's this liminal quality to my life as a disabled person. This in-between spaces is a place where multiple realities can exist at one time, and we can go in different directions. We can stay centered in one place. We can move on the spiral, take it wherever we want to go. I was going over both of your contributions, and I noticed, Kara, with your poem, there's a sense of being seen, and there's a space and a light and a heat, and that all translating into information that then makes meaning. And I'm wondering if you wanted to, if I got that right. Did I get that right? I mean, I know it's poetry and it's interpretive, and I get that,
Right.
but how'd I do?
Yeah, no wrong answers, but definitely, I think, um, well, basically, it stemmed from I went to a specialist and he's seen like a ton of people with my disorder, but my disorder is a little bit more extreme than normal.
Mm.
And he was so impressed with how many tumors I had and how they were clustered together that he asked to present my x-ray at his conference. And I was like, okay, you know. And later on, I started realizing, wow, that's incredibly I don't know how I feel about it because I feel like he's erasing my identity and just showing my x-rays. So I've become nothing but this disorder. And so I had a lot of questions about that and how to navigate between being seen in this way or not being seen at all. And so, yeah, definitely. I tried to use the x-ray and the ideal of Marco Polo to kind of like figure my way through how I felt about the experience and what it meant to me and in a larger connection. That makes sense.
It does. Thank you. And Jess, you contributed two poems, and one of the feelings I got while I was reading through both of them, that it sort of felt to me like there was a mapping of experience going on, and almost as if there was an attempt to sort of learn experience that isn't always tangible, that isn't always readily understood. And I don't know if that makes sense to you at all.
It does. It does. Yeah, I think in both of my poems, I'm, as I had mentioned, sort of stepping outside of my human self. And both of them are about my cancer experiences, but I'm using metaphors in one of a tree and in the other of birds and birdhouses. And this idea of being something other than human, I think is something that especially arose in me when I was going through treatment. Because as kind and as gentle and as caring as the doctors and the nurses are, you are still a patient. And so, in some ways, an object, something to be operated upon or to be treated and studied. And so, there's this feeling of being outside of oneself almost. You're watching what's happening, and sometimes I was too ill even to be able to speak or to open my eyes, but I could still hear and feel, and I could be aware of what was happening around me. And so I think identifying myself with other things such as a tree or a bird that would be observed and would not necessarily be communicated with, but only acted upon. That was something that was very strong for me in my patient experience. But through my poems, trying to reclaim a sense of agency, so giving a voice to these voiceless beings.
Mm. Do you find that writing changed your relationship with your body, with your, I mean, Carrie, you touched on that with the idea of opening up to disability and writing and really finding your identity through writing. Did it change your relationship and your understanding of the condition you live with?
I think so, definitely. Growing up, no one talked about it. It was the way it was. And then, of course, teenagers were asking questions like, what is that? ooh, gross, you have a big baseball tumor on your ankle. Ooh, doesn't that hurt? And started like to create this idea of shame. And so I'd wear like long pants and long sleeves, and I just find ways to cover so no one would ever actually notice. And through writing poetry, I've been able to actually embrace it and talk about it and not be proud of it, but to say this is part of my personality. And I wouldn't be a poet without this. And so I am glad that I am the way I am, because I don't think I'd be a poet at all without a disability.
Wow. And Jess, what about you?
Yeah, I think in my case, as I mentioned, it was my illness that brought me to writing, that brought me to poetry, and all of my so-called disabled conditions, or what I like to think is enabling conditions, being on the autism spectrum, having an auditory processing disorder, and having cancer. These are all hidden. Nobody looking at me unless they see me, when I'm experiencing treatment, or if I perhaps might be feeling ill for one reason or another, they won't know. And so I think for me, writing was a way for me to come to terms with looking at myself as disabled, is looking at myself as somebody who didn't necessarily have to meet all of these expectations that throughout my life, I found difficult to meet, trying to be what normal would be, and what other people expected me to be, allowing myself to be who I truly am and showing that to other people through my work.
That's lovely. Chose not to say wonderful. For me, I identified that I loved writing very, very early. It was one of my earliest memories, actually, but have struggled to maintain the habit because of the illness, and to really incorporate it into my life. Like everything else, it would come in spurts and then collapses. And one of the things I've realized over the last couple of years, it was when I began to kind of find my energy a little bit, and I said, I'm going to develop a writing practice, and it will be the center of the foundation that I'm laying now, and it's not going to be something that is the afterthought. And when I began doing that, I discovered for myself that it was amazing to me how much happier I was. Like, I didn't realize that there was this sadness, but I would start writing regularly, and I was just more me, more myself, and the exploration of um, I think when I mentioned before this idea of creating a new space and writing the future, I think writing is a bit of activism for me, more than a bit of activism for me, because I'm not able to get out there and march and take the actions that I would like to take on a worldly basis. Writing gives me an opportunity to explore the concepts and put them out there, and possibly create an opportunity for people to encounter something they may not have thought of before, or may not want to think of. Those are important for me. And it really did change. It gave me a sense of fluidity, a sense of cooperation within how I'm living now, that is I don't, it brought me more peace, I think, more contentment. So we're getting close to closing today. Is there anything either of you would like to say before we go? Kara, Jess?
I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to have this conversation. I loved speaking with you, Ari, and with you, Kara, as well. Reading your work, but also just getting to know you and understanding the person and the voice that's behind what I see on the page. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm trying so hard to like normalized conversations about disability, and try to have them every single day. And so thank you for inviting us, and thank you, Jess, for also talking about it, because so many times people don't want to talk about it, or they don't know how, and so they're scared. But more of these just really makes me incredibly happy that we can openly talk and not feel shame or fear or a lot of those emotions.
More of these. I second that.
Yes, lots more.
So again, the book that we are all featured in is In Between Spaces, an anthology of disabled writers. The link to purchase it will be in the description. It is officially released on November 1st, 2020, 2022. I can't say the date. November 1st, 2022. It will be available it's on pre-order now, and I think bookstores will be able to order it as of mid-October. Thank you so much, Kara. Thank you, Jess. It's been a pleasure and an honor, and I really do appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.